Welcome into the USFL show. Cinco de Mayo, May 5th. We're breaking down the card for this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday games in the new Professional Football League. I am Drew Martin, joined by Adam Trigger, Rob Veno, Tony Mejia, all at WagerTalk.com. Going around the horn here. Hey, starting right to left maybe this time. Tony Mejia, check him out at WagerTalk.com. Tony from Orlando, Florida. Welcome in, buddy. How you feeling?
I'm doing all right. Decent USFL week. I went 2-1 and hit my video best bet, but it never made it to clients with the Michigan Panthers, Pittsburgh Maulers best bet that we had on the show last week. It won 24-0, and the USFL needs to contact Dave & Buster's because I took my kids there on Sunday, and I was expecting to see some USFL action, and they would not put it on. So I guess USA was not available for those fine folks. But look, we got action now coming in week 4, one undefeated team, one winless team, and a lot of mixed bags of results. So looking forward to dissecting it with you and the other two gentlemen.
Absolutely, Tony. Good to have you. We got Rob Veno, WagerTalk.com. Robbie, an aficionado of college football and the NFL. Perfect mixture here for a new professional league. Welcome in, Robbie.
How are you today, Drew? I try to be
man.
an aficionado of certain things. Thanks for referring to us as gentlemen, Tony Mejia. Appreciate that. USFL week number 4, guys. Last week we talked about maybe seeing things a little bit clearer after having 2 weeks worth of results. After 3, some things stand out right now as, let's take advantage of them. For myself, last week it couldn't have gone worse. 2 plays. Both plays lost by half a point. Had Tampa Bay -1.5, win by 1. Had Philadelphia and the Generals over 40.5, hit 40. Missed extra point by the Stars in the third quarter was costly. And as I look around the league, we often comment on college kickers. USFL kickers are right in that same basket right now.
Oh, Robbie, that hurts just hearing you talk about it. 2 half-point losses, 0-2. Hey, guys, you do this industry long enough, it will happen. Robbie knows what he's doing. Bounce back mode, I'm thinking, Robbie. And, Tony, you mentioned Dave & Buster's, a guy that has an in on Dave & Buster's. In fact, what's their stock symbol? Play? He gave me that tip almost a year ago now, and it's actually up. So I got to give you some credit here, Trigger. And, hey, welcome in, buddy. Happy USFL Cinco de Mayo to you.
What's going on, Drew? Yeah, a good friend of mine he's pretty high up at Dave & Buster's. He is I'm gonna talk to him about that. He should have USFL on. That's unacceptable. So we're gonna make sure that gets fixed. Only client USFL play I had Tampa Bay money line. Nice little comeback win there on the last second field goal. And Rob, we might see better kicking because last week I guess they swapped the balls out so they weren't kicking the balls. Yeah. Have the chip in it anymore. And at least in the game I was watching, the kicking was the couple games that I actually sat and watched, the kicking was a lot better. So maybe we'll see USFL kicking be a little bit improved because of that. But yeah, it's certainly frustrating when you lose a game by a half point and it's because someone couldn't make an extra point.
Yeah, that's a good point, Trig. I saw that as well. It's always interesting when a sport changes the ball mid-season. Reminds me of what was that, 2018 MLB with Rob Manfred changing it on us? USFL actually did do that. And so they'll have a different ball for kickers. I remember just playing high school football, and the kicker used to always say, hey, leave one ball where it's really inflated, and the rest you can kind of, deflate it, because I played quarterback, and it's easier to throw a spiral when a ball is a little bit more deflated. So it's good that I think they're doing that. But at the same time, the NFL, that's actually against the rules. We remember Tom Brady got suspended for that. So Trig, it's kind of like it should help all around being able to change the balls like that, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know what the rule is. I don't know if they just what I thought, the way I interpret it was they were just going to give them balls without chips in it just for kicking. So I don't know if they actually changed the gameplay ball. But I think that's the case in the NFL too. I think the kickers do get to mess with certain balls or have their own balls that are strictly for kicking. So it sounds like that's what they went to in USFL. But still, there's been some adventures on very simple kicks in this league for 3 weeks, which that probably doesn't change a ton. maybe a little bit improvement, but I still have a feeling field goals are going to be an adventure more often than not.
Sure. And I mean, when you only get three weeks of practice before the first game, at least in my notes, I had, hey, watch out for special teams, because it's just, you even see it in kind of small conference college football. I know the three of you know this, special teams early on in the season, watch out. Some of these field goal units, it's like you're missing a guy. Y'all got to get on the same page. It's kind of tough to do. So we'll see how it kind of improves as USFL season goes on. Guys, we got 4 games this week we're going to be breaking down. Love the schedule, by the way. Just personally, we're seeing it Friday night, 10 p.m., Stars and Panthers. We got 2 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. Hopefully they run with this schedule for a while, kind of spread it out a little bit over the weekend. But guys, let's get after it from a betting perspective. We got first game up Saturday. Looking at the WagerTalk odds screen here, it is the Stars and the Panthers. That's the Philadelphia Stars versus the Michigan Panthers, late night, 10 p.m. Eastern time. 36 being the total here, Trig. And we're seeing Pick'em -1. That's the Panthers at home, of course, in Birmingham. All the games in Birmingham. You liking anything here quickly late on Friday night?
Well, the way I'm going to look just right off the bat has to be at the Stars. First off, I've liked this team all year. Of course, big news with Brian Scott going down with what looks like could be a season-ending injury. At least it's going to end his season for the foreseeable future. And this line right here is a complete sort of, in my opinion, reaction to the injury, because I would have fully expected Philadelphia to be at least a 3-point favorite, if not more, with Scott under center. Now, Case Cookus, I believe, is the backup. He came in last week and he wasn't that bad. He think he went 13 for 20. He really wasn't horrible. The Stars did lose that game, but I don't really think that he was the reason they lost the game. So in my opinion, you have an overreaction to the backup quarterback coming in here. And I also think Cookus is going to be in a far better position to succeed, getting a full week to prep and know that he's going to be the starter in the game. Michigan ran out Pittsburgh last weekend, but the Maulers look like they have some real issues at this point. So I would say Michigan's probably a tad overvalued, especially based on where that game went off. I think they went off -4, and they covered that easily. If you look at the other couple games for Michigan, the quarterback situation's been a nightmare. The offensive line is a disaster. So, I think if Philadelphia didn't have if Scott was playing, I would think this would be up -3, -3.5, maybe even -4. I think that's an overreaction. I think Philadelphia is still the better team here. So getting him at a pick looks good to me. I like the Stars.
Robbie, what are you liking here, Stars and Panthers?
Well, first off, like Adam said, the Scott injury is big. And Case Cookus, that is one of the games. I mean, I had to scramble to find Peacock, guys, but I found it, because when you have a play on a game, you'll do anything to find out where the heck it's being streamed or broadcasted or anything. I'm going to say this. The matchup here does not suit the Stars defense. Guys, I watched that game in the second half. Mike Riley's team, I think it was 29 second half plays. They ran the ball 27 times, 2 passes, and every time they ran it, 4 yards, 6 yards, 10 yards, 8 yards, 7 yards. They scored every single drive of the second half. They went to Johnson solely at quarterback, and they ran some RPO stuff where he was running the ball very well. I think he might have gotten close to 100 yards himself. The 2 backs did well. And Philly right now sits dead last in the USFL in rushing yardage allowed. At the line of scrimmage, they're getting absolutely destroyed at this point in time. They average 50 yards a game rushing, if you round it off, and they give up 188. And when you're minus almost 2 yards a carry at the line of scrimmage, it's tough. Now, the reason why this works, any other opponent might not be the same, but Michigan wants to run. Michigan's had 2 games so far this year where they've ran for more yardage than Philadelphia's run for all year. And Michigan ran it well again last week. And Jeff Fisher, with the quarterback play that he's getting, he should just take a page from Mike Riley's notebook and say, listen, I'm not letting you throw the ball, Shea Patterson. I'm not letting. I think Paxton Lynch might even be out for this game. I know he's at least questionable. So when your passing game stinks like Michigan, but you have a team that cannot stop the run, period, and they knew it was coming, I'd have to favor Michigan here if I'm Philadelphia. And again, I'm not a defensive coordinator, but I love to play one on shows like this. You want to stack the box with 8 or 9 guys if you're Philadelphia. Run blitz, just try and take it away from Michigan any way you can, because they can't do it with regular defense. They just can't play anybody straight up. You'll find that. I don't know that that's going to change. I think Adam made the point last week that rosters are slimmer, and they are. And you can't just replace these defensive linemen and linebackers. At this point, they are what they are. They can't play the run. I think Michigan will run it well. Michigan has I think it was the number 1 pass defense in the league. Real quickly, they played the number 4 pass offense in the Generals. They played the number 6 pass offense in Houston and the number 7 pass offense in Pittsburgh. So you could make the case, well, Michigan hasn't played good passing teams, but they did hold every single one of those teams below their season average. So again, Drew, I'm a guy of fundamentals, the 11 on the field, and I just think this matchup is hand in glove fit for Jeff Fisher to get a win. So I kind of like Michigan.
Great analysis, Robbie, and we'll take your defensive coordinator talk anytime on this show for USFL, buddy. Tony, what are you thinking here, man? I mean, I thought Trig and Veno brought up some great points. It beating the Maulers, how much do you put into that? And then we got quarterback injuries. That's always a tricky handicap, no matter what level of football. What are you thinking here late on Friday night, Tony?
I'm thinking the low side because Philadelphia, like Trig said, you're going to turn to Cookus at QB with Scott out, and they've really only topped, more than a handful of points, 16 and 17 against the Maulers. They hung 30 on them. So new quarterback, offense really not exactly producing as they hoped for, and they're playing a defense that has looked solid and in Michigan, and is going to run the football out of Stevie Scott, the former IU running back. Even if Paxton Lynch is out, that Shea Patterson has struggled. So, I don't think we've seen a Michigan Panthers game that has topped 30 points. So the low side of 36 sounds really good to me. And as far as, controlling the line of scrimmage, I think I favor Michigan here. In that they should be able to control on both sides of the ball, and if they get to Cookus, I think they'll. I'm on that side of the pick'em with Michigan.
All right, guys, let's move to the Saturday slate here. First game up, looking at the WagerTalk odds screen, 283-284, New Jersey Generals versus the Pittsburgh Maulers, 34.5 being the total here, Rob Veno. We get -10. There are 9.5s popping up. That's New Jersey Generals. Large spread for USFL. Actually, the biggest spread I can remember off the top of my head here. But, Robbie, I'll tell you this. I have the Maulers circled as just fade city. I mean, coming into this 0-3, and it was one of the notes I made to myself. Watch out. If there is a team that, just isn't as good as the others, it could just be a straight fade that team and make some money. You know what I mean? So that's what I have circled here. Might give it out as my best bet, but what are you thinking here? Generals and Maulers to kick off Saturday.
Yeah, it's a big number, Drew, and I think for me, and I won't say much on this game, but I think it comes down to sheer mathematics. Take a look at last week when the Generals decided, like I say, they absolutely chewed the second half clock up. I think there was 3 possessions each, and it was only 9 each for the game. And when you're going to lay 10 in a 9-possession game, and I'm going with the assumption that New Jersey has had it with Luis Perez, and they're going to be a quarterback by Johnson, and they're just going to run the football. And they shortened that game big time last week. Laying double digits in a short game is somewhat scary if we just get down to mathematics. Pittsburgh had shown that they could stop the run. And in fact, if you look at their season overall average, you see they only give up 117 per game. You say, well, that's a pretty good run defense. Maybe they can get enough stops. However, Michigan ran for 244 against them last week, and they played Philadelphia, who, as I mentioned earlier, only runs for 49-50 a game. So I think the truth of their run defense lies somewhere in between. the Jersey offensive line, as far as drive blocking is concerned, is phenomenal. And again, you have that extra element of Johnson and these RPOs where he just reads the collapsing end and hits the seam and he's gone. So I think it's going to be a tough assignment for Pittsburgh, but in a short possession game, Drew, I'm a little scared to lay 10. Pittsburgh has shown us they're susceptible to being shut out. And New Jersey brings a lot of pass rush. Quarterback play hasn't been great out of Pittsburgh. I keep wanting to will Josh Love and his San Jose State receivers to do something, but they continue to do very little. At best, they're average. So I'm kind of torn here. I know New Jersey's the better team. I know New Jersey can do what they want, but I just don't know if there's enough possessions in a game if Pitt gets a couple of freakish scores. And they have had a couple of defensive TDs so far this year. Something like that, laying 10, puts you in a little bit of trouble with the favorite here in a short possession game.
Yeah, that's a great point, Robbie. Tony, coming to you next. If it's possession suppressed game, a quick game here, I don't want to be laying doubles either, man. What are your thoughts here kicking off Saturday?
No, I mean it's the largest spread in USFL return. 10 points. I was surprised to see it. I thought we'd get a hair over 7.5, maybe 8. DeAndre Johnson from Last Chance U at Community College in Mississippi, and then FAU, and producer Robert's alma mater, Texas Southern. So he's been around and has done a nice job in this league so far. Ran for over 90 yards last game. He's a true dual threat. I just think if they want to play keep away, I think the Generals can play keep away because Rob mentioned that a couple of defensive touchdowns from the Maulers. Well, they've only scored a touchdown in one game. They were held scoreless last game. They were held to 3 points in their first game. So that tells you that offense isn't doing much. And again, I think the Generals probably win this going away, but I'm with Rob and the trepidation of laying 10 points in a game like this. That being said, they've only hung within a touchdown of an opponent once in 3 contests, and the Generals are I think in the top half of this league, probably fourth. I put them fourth in my power rankings. So I could see Generals or nothing. I'm definitely not taking points with the Maulers.
Okay. And Trig, what are you thinking here, man? Laying the 10, taking the points, or what about this total? I mean, if there's not many possessions, the Maulers don't score many touchdowns, don't score many points at all. What about this under, man?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, although I'm starting to get the feeling that unders, especially in like the 30s and whatnot, I feel like the unders the number's a little shaded toward the under for me in a lot of these games. So I'd look over or pass in most scenarios just because of that early under run we had when the league started. See, now I don't think there's any way I could lay 10 with New Jersey here because it just seems like an outrageous number for one of these USFL games. Pittsburgh, obviously they come off getting shut out, but they came off a pretty embarrassing outing in week 1 against Tampa Bay. And they played okay. They were okay against Philly. Actually, Pittsburgh was probably better than the final score suggests against the Stars in week 2, because as we talked about last week, Philly needed a touchdown and a ridiculous 3-point conversion to cover that number. So this number feels inflated. If Mike Riley is out of his mind if he puts Luis Perez back on the field, at this point he's just got to stick with Johnson and run it. Which if that's going to be the case, I mean, maybe that there's not a ton of scoring. Of course, another reason you would do that if you're New Jersey is you don't want to give Pittsburgh. It's like their best offense is like a pick 6 at this point. That's almost the way they've generated the majority of their points is off of defense. So you would think New Jersey's just going to run some more. I think they attempted 24 rushes in a row at one point against Birmingham in the opener. There's still something about this New Jersey team, Drew. I'm not as high on this team. Everyone seems to be super high on this team, but they Riley coached them to a loss essentially in the opener, in my opinion. And he nearly lost to Michigan. If that game was another 90 seconds longer, Michigan probably finds a way to win. So I don't know how you can lay 10 with New Jersey. I had this team rated one of the worst coming into the league. Obviously we didn't know a ton about the team, so you switch around power ratings, but New Jersey to be -10 here seems way excessive. So I'm either taking the 10 or I'm not betting this game. So I would look to Maulers plus 10 or pass.
Okay, good stuff, Trig. And guys, that's halfway through. We got 2 games left. We got best bets at the end. Thanks for joining us here. Please smash that like button if you're liking the content. Adam Trigger, Rob, Veno, Tony Mejia. I am Drew Martin. Check us all out. Free detailed analysis with plays up at WagerTalk.com. We got Saturday, May 7th, the nightcap here. Tony, coming to you first. Hopefully, guys out there, you got a lot of TVs. We got a heck of a Saturday night with the UFC card. We got MLB, NBA playoffs, and we got the Bandits and the Stallions, Tony. 2-1 Bandits, 3-0 Stallions, 7 o'clock on Fox. We're seeing -3.5. We're seeing Circa, or actually Westgate, hanging a -4 here. That's the Stallions. 40.5 being the total. What are you liking here Saturday night in the USFL, Tony?
Yeah, the unbeaten Stallions, and they were impressive. I expected the Breakers to win that game. It was a client play. It was a loss on a day where I was hoping for a 3-0 sweep last Saturday, and didn't happen because the Breakers committed 3 turnovers in the fourth quarter with the game on the line after Birmingham took a 17-13 lead in that contest because it was back and forth for the first 3 quarters, and then Birmingham imposed their will, and that was impressive. Didn't expect to see that. Certainly, Birmingham is the only team in this league with any type of home field advantage, because they're the only team that's being supported by the locals, and they're playing really well. Tampa was the team that I kept my eye on to start with. They were a projected champion, but they've really been disappointing. Shot themselves in the foot all game, and then managed to come up with a comeback to prevent a loss on Saturday. And I fortunately played them on the money line. Because those who laid points ended up losing. But look, it was a comeback win. Jordan Ta'amu continues to be impressive as far as this league is concerned, but he's leaving points out there with missed throws. Really hasn't been as sharp as he was in the XFL. But yeah, like at this point, I remember tweeting out, man, this team, their defense is porous, and their offense and it makes miscues that really, have taken points off the board. There was a lineman downfield, took a touchdown off the board. They've given up the second most passing yards in the league. So I would say Birmingham is the way to go in this one. But, Tampa does have talent. They do have offensive weapons. This might be the one game that I play over on this week 4 card.
And Robbie, coming back to you, man, what are you thinking Saturday night USFL action?
I'm right with where Tony ended that. It played over early in the week. I think that number was 40.5. Tony, also to his point about Tampa leaving points on the field, I mean, they fumble at the cone, at the goal line, turns into a touchback right before halftime. I mean, they were that might have been the same exact drive where they had a play called back. But there was something that we talked about last week that I had noticed from that Tampa Bay defense against New Orleans, and Larry Fedora spread them out and threw the ball all day long. And I remember saying here last week, if you're watching, and again, I'm not an offensive coordinator, but I like to play one on these shows, spread this team out and throw the football. And the Houston Gamblers threw the football real well against that team. And they got caught in the end, yes, but they had 26 points. They had some big pass plays. The last 2 weeks, the Tampa Bay pass defense has allowed 506 passing yards. The last 23 drives against this team have resulted in 11 scores. Almost 50% of the time you score against this defense in the last 2 weeks. And Birmingham can do both. They're probably the most explosive team as far as offense is concerned. Outside the red zone scores are concerned, they lead the league. And they throw it real well. I think that's a bad matchup for that Tampa secondary. Just to further Tony's point, I noticed this in the New Orleans game. There's no question, guys, that these crowds help Birmingham. There's just no question. That game, Birmingham, New Orleans, statistically is not that far separated. But that crowd, and when you look at the other games, you see 5 people. When you look at the Birmingham game, you see people actually rooting for somebody. So it makes a difference, and it may not carry them to a championship win because the championship is played in Canton, Ohio. unless these Birmingham folks are going to get in their cars and drive to Ohio. I don't know that it'll affect the championship game. But for now, with every game being in Birmingham, it is a real advantage for them. The other side of that coin, Tampa can score. And Birmingham's not the most stout defense in this league. So I think Tampa will get theirs. I thought the early number was low, Drew, 40.5. Again, I'm going through these analysis quite a bit with fundamental matchups because we're seeing things that are taking form now. And I think what takes form here is you spread Tampa Bay's defense out, you throw the football, you score a lot of points, and you score on a lot of possessions. So I'll take over in that game.
Like it, Robbie. And yeah, Trig, coming to you in closing, man. Robbie brings up, the Birmingham here having a home field advantage. It's something that I've noted too. I mean, you look at all the other games, there's no one there. Birmingham plays, and it's like the stadium's, almost full. And I think they are making an impact. And we're also seeing USFL kind of notice that and put them in prime time. I mean, they're 7:00 on Saturday night here. So they're likely going to have a home field advantage again, man. I'd look to back that. How do you feel in this one?
Yeah, I mean, so I agree with Rob. There's no question that they've got a crowd there, and that's a fact, right? There's fans coming out supporting the Birmingham side. There's no disputing that. I mean, I don't know that it's to the point where I think the number should be being moved to reflect like a home game. I mean, it's definitely. They have a crowd, but, Birmingham, they've also made some plays to win games. You go back to their first two games, they could have easily lost to New Jersey, and they were on the ropes for a minute against Houston. Two teams I don't think are tremendous teams. I know the Generals have gotten a little hotter, whatnot, but I don't think Houston is very good. And New Jersey and Houston moved the ball without issue against that Birmingham defense. Now, you go to last week, that's a really good result for Birmingham to beat what I think we all kind of agree is a New Orleans team that's right up, if not the best in this league. But now, I mean, does that maybe create a little bit of a letdown spot for Birmingham? I think it could a little bit. They come off this huge win over New Orleans, and now they see themselves favored by more than a field goal. My only bet last week for clients was Tampa Bay money line. It got there. I still think Tampa Bay. This was the team that kind of came in and I think went off or was right up there as a favorite coming into the league, coming into the season, plus 450 to win it all. I still think they're one of the better teams in the league. They have just some things that they have to sort out. But, Teamu played better in the second half last week. They obviously won week one, completely blanked the Maulers, which is starting to look less and less impressive as the days go on. But I really think that week 2 game against New Orleans was just a throwaway game, in my opinion, where that just nothing went right for Tampa. So coming off of a win, I have Tampa a little bit undervalued, and I'd say they were a lot undervalued against this number of 3.5. So the way I look in this game, I like the Tampa Bay Bandits here. I think plus 3.5 is great value. Maybe we'll even wait and see a 4. I'm not sure how this one's going to move. But I like Tampa. I would not be shocked at all. Birmingham's not going to win all their games. Someone's going to get them at some point. And I think Tampa's more than capable of doing it. So I'm going to look to the Bandits here. I think there's some nice value getting 3.5, and I wouldn't be surprised if they won.
All right, good stuff, Trig. Guys, last game, and then we'll get to best bets here. Moving to the Sunday slate, Houston Gamblers, New Orleans Breakers. We're seeing the Breakers minus 4.5, minus 5 at the WagerTalk odds screen. Looks like DraftKings, two offshores here, guys, or one offshore and one DraftKings at minus 5, minus 4.5. Pretty much everywhere else. Trig, coming to you first, man. Gamblers, Breakers minus 4 in the hook. What are you liking on Sunday?
Oh, I would lay the 4.5. That's definitely one I'm looking at. Like I alluded to in the last segment, I still think New Orleans is probably the best team in this league. That was a good game last week that they lost a kind of a hard-fought game to Birmingham. But I don't think it puts me off the New Orleans side being the top team in this league. And I still have the Gamblers toward the bottom. Tampa Bay, as we all have kind of discussed at this point, really kept, in my opinion, even though they had to come behind and win, Tampa Bay shot themselves in the foot so many times in that game that they probably should have led easily and won far easier than they did, and probably should have won by margin against Houston last week. I think Clayton Thorson is awful. I don't think he's a great quarterback, and I think he'll probably continue to be a liability for Houston. Their defense is really isn't great, and I think Rob maybe said it earlier. They've been awful at making adjustments at halftime. They come out and they just get steamrolled in the second half of games. I'll continue to fade Houston for the foreseeable future, and that's the way I would look here. I think New Orleans is just in a different class, so I think that number is actually a little short. Wouldn't be surprised to see this go off in the 6 or 7 range by kickoff on Sunday.
Yeah, a little push towards the Breakers. Robbie, I had the Breakers circled as well, jumping on them off of that tough loss last week. But what are you thinking here to close out the Week 4 card on Sunday?
Yeah, I'll just add a little bit to what Adam was saying about Houston's second halves there. They are plus 31 points in the first half. They've outscored people 58-27 first half, plus 31. They're minus 32 in the second half, getting beat 45-13 in the second half. So they're only minus 1 point on the entire season, but they certainly are two different teams. First half, they're right there. Second half, they're right there. Where Clayton Thorson is concerned, last week, Houston rolled up 400 yards against Tampa. It's a complete indictment on that Tampa Bay pass defense, like I said earlier, and it's a complete indictment on the fact that they can't defend a spread offense. 2 teams in a row have done it. 2 teams in a row have been very successful. Look for that to be a trend against Tampa for the remainder of the year. Where Houston's concerned, guys, this is a different animal, New Orleans. And I'm in agreement with Adam and you, Drew, here, that New Orleans is the better team. That secondary is lights out. Now, they might not have the best overall pass yards through 3 games allowed, but they only allow 50% completions. They come up with big play after big play. They actually outgained Birmingham in that game that they lost last week. So I think that what Houston does here, that they do well on offense, which is really kind of split. When you go through their numbers, and I went through them before, they're about a 55-45 percentage as far as play call is concerned to the run, and they're about a 45-55 yardage gain to the pass. So it's a pretty diverse team. But New Orleans, we talked about this defensive front all season long so far. They rush the passer, they stop the run, and the defensive secondary is as good as it gets. I don't know that Houston's going to find the yardage that they found last week against Tampa. They're not going to find as many openings. And I think the Breakers bounce back big offensively against this particular defense. So I thought 4.5 was short. Again, I thought the Birmingham crowd made a big difference in a close game last week in the fourth quarter. Helped Birmingham beat New Orleans. Houston won't have that here. I'm with you guys. It just looks too short to me. I think New Orleans can win this game by 10 or more.
And Tony, coming to you last, I guess Trig, myself, and Veno all lining up on the same side. And sure enough, we're seeing some of the sharper sports books go from 4.5 to 5 here. Do you disagree with it? Maybe look the other way, or you think this kind of move towards the Breakers is the right side?
Me disagree with you guys? Never. No, look, I think the Breakers is absolutely the right side. And I would say let's go over on this game as well. The Gamblers have given up the most points of anybody in this league, but they can move it because running back Mark Thompson leads the league in rushing, over 300 yards. He played at Florida, if anybody remembers him. They've got Isaiah Zuber, who's a pretty solid wide receiver. He was at K-State for a long time. I think he finished his career at Mississippi State. So they got some playmakers, even though Thorson's terrible. He's completing just 39% of his passes. So imagine if he was actually doing his job, what Houston would probably have a few more wins than their 1-2 record indicates. And then obviously we've got New Orleans with a really talented quarterback in Kyle Sloter who can make plays with his feet, including his arm. We saw Larry Rose III emerge last week. I referenced him last week, wanting to see more of him because I remember him at New Mexico State. Johnny Dixon has really been a go-to guy. I think he's the reigning USFL Offensive Player of the Week. He was always open last week. He played at Ohio State. So, I mean, guys with really good pedigree. Tywan Taylor, who played with the Titans for a while. The guys recognized he got his hands on the ball last week. I noticed a couple of times. So a lot of offensive talent in this matchup. The weather is going to be cooperative. And on my best bet, I'll tell you when the weather is not going to cooperate, because Friday night looks touch and go for thunderstorms in Birmingham, but the weekend weather looks nice. I like the over in this New Orleans-Houston game, and I am with you guys on laying the points with the Breakers.
Great stuff from Tony Mejia. Guys, it is time for Best Bets. We appreciate everybody joining us. Look for the video, USFL betting video here. This is the week 4. We'll be back with week 5 next week. Guys, I'm going to start it off here with the Pittsburgh Maulers, New Jersey Generals, Saturday, May 7th, the early game. We are seeing -9.5 is the low watermark. Some sports books at -10, but you can get -9.5 on the Generals. And really the premise behind this bet, guys, 0-3 the Maulers. They have not looked good out the gate. They can't score. And therefore, I'm just going to fade them until further notice. I had this philosophy coming into the league in terms of sometimes, teams can just be good bet against out the gate, and I think the Maulers are that. So I'm going with the Generals. The first game on Saturday, -9.5 is my best bet for the show. We get Adam Trigger on Twitter at TopFlightSI, WagerTalk.com, KBO. He's known as Korean Adam by some. He knows MLB as well, USFL. Trig, where are you going for best bets, and any final thoughts for the show, man?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to add this for clients, but my best bet for the show, and it will be a client play, is the New Orleans Breakers. -4.5, -5 if that's what it is, that's fine. I actually wouldn't be surprised at all if this one got up around -6, -6.5 come kickoff, because that's the way that this New Orleans line moved against Birmingham last week. And even though they lost that game, again, we talked about it. Birmingham, sometimes you just have to tip the cap to the other team. Birmingham played well. They played off the home crowd, and they made plays to beat one good team beat another good team, and it is what it is. But New Orleans, in my opinion, is still the best team in this league. I still have them number 1. If you wanted a power rating for, I would have the Breakers number 1. We talked about Kyle Sloter being a steal in the draft for the Breakers to get him as low as they did in the first round. And even with the loss, he really didn't play poorly last week. I mean, he still made plays, and I still expect him to be one of the better playmakers in this league. Houston is just, even you go back to week 1, and their lone win, in my opinion, is still more of a result of Michigan just being a complete and utter disaster than it is Houston playing winning football. And then you go back to last week. Yes, it took a last-second field goal for Tampa to win that game, but Houston also benefited from, I want to say on 2 occasions, Tampa fumbling into the end zone or having a touchdown called back. So Tampa really shot themselves in the foot, less Houston just, being the better team. In this instance, New Orleans is without a doubt the better team. I would have made this number a touchdown. So anything less than 7, I think it probably gets there. I think it maybe was Rob that said, probably by 10. That sounds right to me. I feel like New Orleans probably wins this one by 10 or 11 points. So I'll lay basically, whatever number you can find, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6. I think it's all good. I think New Orleans wins this one going away.
All right, New Orleans Breakers, and we can give you 4.5. It's 4.5 both in Vegas and offshore. So -4 in the hook for Trig. We get Rob Veno at Rob Veno Sports on Twitter, WagerTalk.com. A man of many talents, NBA playoffs going on. He knows his MLB and USFL as well. Robbie, what do you got for final thoughts for the show, and what's your best bet, buddy?
One of my final thoughts here as we close is Adam's shirt during this whole show looks like one giant hypnotic swirl. It's like for those of you under the age of 50, go Google Rowan and Martin's Laughing from like the late 60s and early 70s and some of the psychedelic stuff that used to be on that show. It's crazy. For Robert Harris, our beloved producer and unapologetic Houston fan, in defense of Clayton Thorson, and I'm on New Orleans with you guys. I don't want Houston in this game, but the point was made last week, and I thought it was a pretty good point, that with Kenji Bahar hurt, that Clayton Thorson, his mind was freed up. He didn't have to look over his shoulder to see when he was getting yanked from the game because they'd been playing 2 quarterbacks, and he looked like a different player last week. They rolled up 400 yards. There may be something to that. There usually is, in football, when you don't have to worry about being replaced and you can play a little freer. It helps. I still think they get beat by New Orleans. I like Adam's best bet. I'm going to go with Michigan. Weatherman Tony Mejia just put the nail in the coffin for me here because, again, Philadelphia's run defense, they're going to have to prove it to me. I mean, I'll go down with this bet if they lose this game, Michigan. But Tony talked about Stevie Scott. Reggie Corbin, this all Big Ten backfield that they have, Reggie Corbin from Illinois, about 6.5 yards a carry last week. And they're going to run it down Philadelphia's throat. I mean, Philadelphia, again, I'm giving them advice. Throw 8 or 9 in the box and just make Shea Patterson pass. But I don't know that 8 or 9 in the box after what I saw last week can even stop Michigan. Their run defense is horrendous. They don't have anybody that tackles anybody. They finally ran a run blitz at the end of that game in desperation where they got home. It's going to have to be a lot of that. But in a pick'em game, Drew, in bad weather or potential bad weather, I'm going to take the team that can run the football. Case Cookus was not bad. I'm not, fading Case Cookus. He had a couple pretty good drives. But they're not going to be able to keep up with this team because they're never going to have the ball. And if they have a couple of 3-and-outs, they're done. This team gave up 348 yards to the Pittsburgh Maulers, which is almost 100 yards better than Pittsburgh's season average. It's the only team Pittsburgh's moved the ball against all season long. So give me Michigan at Pick'em on Friday night. And, if it rains, that's just a little bit of a bonus.
All right, Michigan Pick'em, available both in Vegas and offshore. We got Tony Mejia here, WagerTalk.com. Tony, what do you got for best bets? Final thoughts for the show, bud?
Yes, kids, I'm not a meteorologist, but I play one during football season and during baseball season because you have to. The total here is 36. There's going to be hail potentially and wind gusts up to 30 miles an hour. So Cookus' first start is potentially going to be rough in terms of having to get acclimated against some bad weather with a shoddy-looking offensive line because I do think that the Panthers are better up front. I think they're going to commit to running the football, but I will stop short at saying that I expect them to win this game because Michigan, if it's Shea Patterson under center, he has really looked rough, in every game that he's played in. So I will actually have everybody in our viewing audience watching this around 1:00 in the morning, sweating the under, because that's what people want to do at 1 a.m. on a Saturday morning. Is sweat USFL unders, which I believe circa's at 35, 36 at DraftKings, so get the best number. And I just don't see many points in this game. We know that Jeff Fisher wants to run the ball and trust his defense. We know that the weather may be a factor, and I don't trust either quarterback, even though Cook has looked decent in his turn after Scott went down. So give me the under and Stars and Panthers to kick off USFL Week 4.
Tony Mejia, expert weatherman, liking the under on Friday night in Birmingham. So, guys, that does it for the show. We do have best bet recap here. I'm on the Generals, -9 in the hook, fading those Maulers. We got Trigger on New Orleans Breakers, -4 in the hook. Rob Veno, Michigan Panthers at the pick'em price. And Tony Mejia, you just heard it there. Weather expert analysis. Philadelphia Stars, Michigan Panthers, under 36. So, guys, that does it for the show. For Tony Mejia, Rob Veno, Adam Trigger, I am Drew Martin. Check us all out. Free plays up and available. We got best bets as well, wagertalk.com. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Please smash that like button. Let us know below any replies, any questions you have, what you're looking to bet. It is all welcome on the Wager Talk YouTube channel in the reply section below. So, guys, thanks for tuning in. Best of luck with your bets. We'll be back next week. Same time, same place. Come back and join us. See you next week.